You're free now." He said it as if it were a gift. He said it with a single, careless sentence that shattered my world before the entire pack. In our world, an alpha freeing his mate is just a polite way of discarding her, stripping her of her status, her protection, and her future. My mate thought that by releasing our bond, I would simply fade away into the shadows of the territory. He expected me to stay and watch him choose someone else. He was wrong. I didn't run because I was weak. I ran because I refused to be a ghost in my own home. But as I crossed the borders into the lawless wild, something happened that neither of us predicted. The bond didn't die. It echoed. The moment I stepped onto forbidden ground, the silence in my chest was replaced by a roar. Back at the Citadel, the alpha who let me go felt it too. He didn't just lose a mate, he lost his own tether to sanity. Now the man who couldn't wait to be rid of me has turned the entire region into a hunting ground. He isn't coming to apologize, and he isn't coming to beg. He's coming to reclaim what he was too arrogant to value. If you've ever walked away from a future that didn't deserve you, stay with me. Because the one who let me go is about to find out that you can't hunt what you no longer own. And some wolves run not because they're afraid, but because they're finally ready to bite back. Comment and subscribe if you believe regret is the most dangerous predator of all. They said she was brave for leaving. They were wrong. Bravery implies choice made without fear. What she felt as she crossed the pack boundary was terror sharpened into resolve, a knowledge so clear it hurt. If she stayed, she would disappear piece by piece until nothing remained but obedience with her face on it. The rejection hadn't been loud. That was what made it worse. No public shaming, no cruel words, just the alpha standing before the council, gaze steady, voice calm, as he dissolved the future they had woven around her since childhood. "You're not what the bond needs," he had said. "Not, I don't choose you. Not, I release you with honor. Just, you're insufficient." The pack accepted it easily. Destiny was efficient like that. It removed what didn't fit and called the absence balance. She smiled. She bowed. She thanked him for his honesty. And that night, she left. The forest welcomed her in a way the pack never had. Shadows shifted to hide her path. The wind carried her scent away from well-worn trails. Her wolf, quiet for days, stunned by the sudden absence of a bond, slowly lifted its head inside her chest. "We're alive," it whispered. She didn't know where she was going, only that she was moving toward a future that hadn't already decided who she was allowed to be. Miles away, the alpha woke with a start. No dream, no nightmare. A hollow space where something had always been. He rose from his bed before dawn, confused irritation simmering beneath his skin. He told himself it was nothing. Residual tension from dissolving the bond, the after effects of responsibility carried too long. But when he stepped outside and breathed in, his chest tightened painfully. Her scent was fading. Not from distance, from absence. She had crossed the boundary. The realization struck harder than rejection ever had. He had expected her to remain, quietly grateful for release, safely contained within the pack's gravity. He hadn't expected her to leave. The bond reacted then, not reforming, not reigniting, but flaring sharp enough to steal his breath. It wasn't a pull toward possession. It was a warning. He let out a low, involuntary growl, instinct snapping awake as the truth clawed its way through pride and justification. She hadn't been wrong for the bond. The bond had been wrong for the life he demanded of her, and now she was beyond his reach, unless he crossed lines he had sworn never to cross. He stood very still as the moon slipped behind cloud, understanding settling with brutal clarity. If he let her go now, truly let her go, he would live with that emptiness forever. And if he went after her, then this would no longer be about fate or duty, it would be about choice. In the forest, she paused at the crest of a ridge and looked back once, just once, at the land she was leaving behind. Her heart ached, but it didn't break. She didn't know the Alpha had already begun to follow. Didn't know that the one who had freed her with a word was now moving through the dark with a hunter's focus, driven by something far more dangerous than destiny. Regret. She did not slow until the forest stopped recognizing her as prey. That was how she knew she'd gone far enough. When the usual tension faded, when the air no longer felt like it was waiting for permission to close in around her. Her legs burned, lungs aching with every breath, but she kept moving until instinct finally loosened its grip. Only then did she stop. She leaned against the trunk of an old pine, forehead pressed to rough bark, breath shuddering out of her chest. The silence around her was deep and unclaimed. No patrol scents, no territorial markers pressed into the soil. Just wilderness, unapologetic and indifferent. Freedom. The word tasted strange. Her wolf stirred for the first time since the bond had been dissolved. Not howling, not mourning, just present. "We're still here," it murmured, cautious but alive. She slid down the tree and sat on the forest floor, wrapping her arms around herself as the delayed weight of everything she'd left behind finally hit. The pack, the certainty, the future that had been outlined for her in careful words and rigid expectations. She hadn't lost a mate. She had lost a script. And that hurt in ways grief never prepared you for. By midday, she had moved again, following streams and ridgelines, avoiding open ground the way she'd been taught as a child. She ate sparingly, drank often, and let the forest teach her new rules. Each step carried her farther from who she had been expected to become. She did not notice the shift immediately. At first, it was subtle, a prickle at the back of her neck, a sense of being aligned with something she could not see. The forest still protected her path, but now it felt alert, aware. She paused near a fallen log, senses sharpening. No hostile sense, no immediate danger. And yet, something had changed. Miles behind her, the Alpha moved with ruthless efficiency. He did not bring warriors, did not call scouts. Pride would not allow witnesses, not yet. This was not a hunt meant for ceremony or conquest. This was personal. He tracked her the way instinct demanded, nose low, mind quiet, letting the bond's echo guide him through places where scent alone would fail. The bond was broken, yes, but echoes remained. Threads didn't vanish just because they were cut. They remembered. Each step he took stripped away justifications he'd built so carefully. It was necessary. She would understand. The pack needed stability. None of those thoughts held under the raw clarity of distance. She hadn't begged. That was what haunted him most. She had accepted the rejection with grace, bowed her head, and left without protest, as if she had already been halfway gone. By dusk, She felt it clearly. Not fear, pressure. She rose slowly from where she'd been gathering water, eyes scanning the tree line. Her heart began to race, not in panic, but recognition. "I know," she whispered into the quiet. "I feel it too." The echo wasn't pulling her back. It was moving toward her. Her wolf stiffened. "He's coming." "Yes," she breathed. "I know." She did not run. Not because she couldn't, but because she refused to be chased into becoming small again. She gathered her things calmly, chose higher ground, and moved toward a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley. If he wanted to find her, he would do it facing her. Night fell quickly. The moon rose half full, pale and watchful. She stood at the edge of the stone shelf, wind tugging at her cloak, when she sensed him step into the clearing below. He did not hide. That, too, told her everything. "You shouldn't be here," she called down, voice steady despite the way her chest tightened. "I know," he answered. His voice carried easily, familiar in a way that stirred old instincts she refused to indulge. "You let me go," she said. "That was your choice." "Yes." "Then why are you following me?" Silence stretched. "Because I was wrong," he said finally. The words hit, but they did not undo what had already broken. She laughed softly, bitter and almost kind. "You don't get to hunt someone just because regret finally caught up with you." "I'm not hunting you," he replied, lifting his gaze to meet hers. "I'm trying to understand why letting you go feels like tearing something out of my chest." She stepped closer to the edge, moonlight outlining her silhouette. "Because you mistook control for care," she said, "and now you're learning the difference." The bond's echo pulsed once, sharp, unresolved. She did not invite him closer. She did not turn away. Whatever came next would not be decided by fate, pack law, or instinct alone. It would be decided by whether the alpha who let her go could face the woman who refused to stay broken. He did not advance. That surprised her more than his presence ever could. The alpha remained at the edge of the clearing, posture controlled, dominance deliberately leashed. The night held its breath around them, the moon pale above, as if waiting to see which of them would decide the shape of what came next. "I didn't come to take you back," he said quietly. She crossed her arms, unimpressed. "You followed my trail across 3 ridgelines. Call it what it is." His jaw tightened. "I followed because something broke when you left." "That doesn't make it my responsibility," she replied. "No," he agreed. "It makes it mine." The admission landed heavily. She remembered a different alpha, one who spoke in absolutes, who believed certainty was kindness. This version looked altered, not weaker, sharpened in a way that hurt to witness. "You said I was free," she continued, "that the bond didn't need me." "I said the bond didn't need force," he corrected. "I told myself that meant you'd stay." Her laugh echoed softly across the stone. "So you let me go without asking what freedom meant to me." Silence followed, thick, honest. "Yes," he said at last. "And that was the first mistake." She inhaled slowly, letting the wind steady her. "The first?" He lifted his gaze fully then, eyes reflecting moonlight and something darker beneath it. "The second," was believing I'd survive the consequence. The echo between them flared, not pulling, not binding, unfinished. "You don't get absolution because you're uncomfortable now," she said. "You rejected me publicly. You dismantled my future in front of people who learned how to erase me from that moment on." "I know," he said. "You don't know," she snapped, anger finally slicing through her composure. "You went back to your den. I crossed into nothing." His shoulders squared, as if absorbing a blow he had earned. "Then tell me what you need me to hear." The question stunned her. Not forgive me, not come back. Just tell me. She stepped closer to the edge, moonlight sharpening her features. "You didn't let me go out of kindness," she said quietly. "You let me go because you didn't want to fight the pack for me." He flinched, barely. "And now you're here," she continued, "because fighting yourself is harder than fighting them." The forest seemed to lean in, listening. "Yes," he said hoarsely. "That's the truth." Her wolf stirred, not urging reconciliation, not warning of danger, watching. "You came hunting," she said. "Yes," he admitted, "not to claim, to confront what I denied." "And if you hadn't found me?" she asked. His answer came without hesitation. "I would have followed until there was nothing left to follow." That chilled her more than any growl could have. "You don't get to rewrite the story by chasing me into the wild," she said. "I didn't run to be pursued." "I know," he replied. "That's why I stopped here." She studied him. This alpha, stripped of pack, authority muted by distance and truth. "What happens if I tell you to leave?" "I leave," he said simply. The echo between them tightened, tested. "And if I don't?" "Then I stay at whatever distance you allow," he replied. "And I listen." The night stretched. She remembered the girl who had stood silent before the council, heartbreaking quietly, because she believed obedience would protect her. That girl deserved better than a future decided by delayed regret. "You don't get me back," she said firmly. "Not as I was." He nodded once. "I wouldn't recognize her now." That was something. "Then understand this," she continued. "If you're here, it's not because fate pulled you. It's because you chose to walk after me, knowing I might never choose you again." His voice was steady. "Yes." The bond's echo softened, not reigniting, not severing, balanced on a blade. She turned away from the ledge, stepping back into the forest's deeper shadow. "You can follow," she said, over her shoulder. "But I won't slow down." He did not smile, did not thank her. He simply fell into step several paces behind, far enough to respect her boundary, close enough to accept the cost of staying. As they moved through the trees, the forest shifted, no longer hiding her path, no longer erasing his. It watched both of them now. And somewhere beneath the moon, the echo of what had once been destined waited, not to reclaim them, but to see whether choice could survive the chase. They traveled through the night without speaking, not in silence born of avoidance, but in the careful quiet of two wolves relearning the shape of each other's presence without entitlement. He kept his distance exactly as promised, footsteps measured, scent controlled. Not once did he try to close the space she had set between them. That, more than apologies, unsettled her. The forest was different now. It no longer bent to hide her trail the way it had when she fled alone. It didn't betray her either. It simply observed, as if the land itself were curious how this story would unfold. By dawn, exhaustion dragged at her limbs. She stopped near a narrow ravine where water cut through stone, the sound sharp and grounding. She knelt, splashing her face, forcing herself to stay present instead of spiraling back into memory. Behind her, he stopped as well, no closer than he had been all night. "You're limping," he said quietly. She stiffened. "Don't." "I'm not trying to close the distance," he replied. "Just naming what's real." She glanced down, annoyed to find him right. A twisted root had scraped her ankle hours earlier. Adrenaline had masked it until now. "I've had worse," she said. "I know," he answered, and there was no pride in it. Only regret. That cut deeper than concern ever could. They rested there for a while, drinking in silence. When she rose again, she moved more slowly. He adjusted his pace without comment. By midday, they reached high ground overlooking a valley marked with old territorial stones, neutral land, long abandoned after a border war that no one could remember winning. The air here was thin, heavy with old tension. She stopped abruptly. "Do you feel that?" she asked. He nodded. Yes. The echo of their broken bond stirred, faint, unstable, like a scar remembering how it was made. This place had once been chosen for alliances, then cursed by betrayal. Land remembered things Pax pretended they didn't. She folded her arms, gaze distant. "This is where they first told me I was meant for you." He inhaled slowly. "I remember." "Do you?" she challenged softly. "Or do you remember what they told you I was supposed to be?" He did not answer immediately. "When I think of that day," he said at last, "I remember how relieved I was to be told my future had already been decided." She turned sharply. "Relieved?" "Yes," he said quietly. "Because it meant I didn't have to question whether I deserved it." The honesty stunned her. "You didn't see me," she said. "Not really." "No," he agreed. "I saw stability." The word tasted bitter between them. She stepped closer, not toward him, but toward the edge of the overlook, staring down into the valley. "And when I stopped being stable?" "I chose the pack," he said. "Because I didn't know how to choose anything else." The echo between them pulsed, not angry, exposed. "You came hunting," she said again. "Yes." "Not because you love me," she added. He closed his eyes briefly. "Not only because of that." She waited. "Because losing you forced me to see how much of myself I'd built on obedience," he continued, "and how hollow it was without you standing quietly inside it." Her chest tightened despite herself. "Don't," she warned. "Don't turn this into poetry. I didn't bleed quietly so you could find yourself." He opened his eyes, meeting her gaze. "I know. That's why I'm not asking you to come back." That stopped her. "Then why stay?" she asked. "Because walking away again would be easier," he said, "and I've had enough of easy choices." The wind shifted, carrying their scents outward, tangling briefly before separating again. Movement flickered at the valley's edge. She stiffened. "We're not alone." He followed her gaze. Wolves, 3, maybe 4, watching from the shadows. Not scouts from her old pack. Rogues. The alpha tensed subtly, not stepping forward, not asserting dominance, waiting for her lead. "They smell the echo," she murmured. "Broken bonds attract attention." "Yes," he said, "and opportunists." One of the rogues stepped into clearer view, grin sharp, posture loose in the way of wolves who answered to no law but survival. "Well," the rogue called, eyes sliding between them. "This is interesting." She felt the alpha's presence steady behind her, not looming, not shielding unless asked. "She's packless," the rogue continued, "and you smell like regret. Bad combination." Her wolf bristled, but she stayed calm. "Move on." The rogue laughed. "Or what?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The alpha stepped forward then, not past her, not in front, beside. His dominance unfurled, not violent, not explosive, but unmistakably alpha. The rogues stiffened, reassessing. "She is not prey," he said coldly, "and she is not unclaimed." The rogue's grin faltered. "Then why did you let her run?" The question hung heavy. The alpha answered without hesitation. "Because she deserved the chance to leave me." Silence snapped tight. The rogues backed away slowly, interest cooling as danger clarified. They vanished into the trees without another word. Her heart pounded, not from fear, from something dangerously close to trust. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly, once they were alone again. "Yes," he replied, "I did." She studied him for a long moment. "You're not the same alpha who rejected me," she said. "No," he agreed. "And you're not the woman who stayed." The echo between them shifted, no longer a wound, a question. She turned away from the valley, resuming her path. "We keep moving." He fell into step again, still behind, still patient, but closer now. Not because he closed the distance, because she allowed it. By the second night, the chase was no longer his. That truth settled into her bones as they moved through the narrowing ravines beyond the valley. Terrain that demanded awareness, not pursuit. She chose the paths. She set the pace. He followed, not because instinct dragged him forward, but because restraint now required more discipline than dominance ever had. The moon rose high and sharp, its light breaking against stone walls that funneled sound and scent into dangerous clarity. Broken land, old land. The kind of place packs avoided because echoes lied. She stopped abruptly. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. He nodded. "Yes." Not footsteps. Breathing. Controlled. Multiple. She exhaled slowly, calculating. "This canyon attracts hunters. And those who think broken bonds mean easy leverage," he said. She glanced back at him. "You still don't get to decide for me." "I know," he replied immediately. "Tell me what you want." The simplicity of the question tightened her chest. "Stand where you are," she said, "and don't move unless I say." His jaw clenched, but he obeyed. That mattered more than any vow. She stepped forward alone, moving into the open where the canyon widened. Shadows shifted as figures emerged. 5 wolves this time. Lean, scarred. Rogues hardened by years of taking what was unprotected. "Well," one drawled, "looks like the moon brought us a gift." She met his gaze steadily. Keep walking. Another laughed. Packless wolves don't give orders. I'm not packless, she said calmly. They sniffed the air, confused. Her scent carried no active bond, but it carried something else now. Choice, control, refusal to fold. The alpha behind her did not move, did not flare, waited. She's lying, a rogue muttered. No bond, no territory. The leader circled closer. So what are you then? She held his gaze. A decision you don't get to make. She shifted, just enough for her wolf to rise fully, presence unfolding without dominance. Not submission either, the canyon answered. The land vibrated faintly, unsettled by the idea of control being asserted where it was no longer welcome. The rogues hesitated. That was when the leader made his mistake. He lunged. She reacted instantly, not with panic, not with power borrowed from someone else. She moved because she knew her body. She ducked, drove her elbow into his ribs, twisted free as claws grazed fabric instead of flesh. She did not need the alpha, but he was there anyway. At her signal. The moment she stumbled back, he moved, clean, precise. Dominance snapping into place like a blade drawn only when necessary. He did not roar, did not threaten. He ended it. Two rogues fled immediately. One dropped to his knees, another limped into the shadows. The leader lay groaning, stunned by a power he had not expected to meet restraint. Leave, the alpha said coldly. Now. They did. Silence fell, broken only by her breathing. He turned to her slowly, checking her with his eyes, not his hands. You all right? Yes, she said, and realized she meant it. Her hands were steady, her wolf calm. You waited, she said. Yes. You didn't assume. No. The echo between them pulsed. Not hot, not sharp, aligned. They made camp higher up the canyon, fire small and shielded. She sat across from him, knees drawn up, staring into the flames. I didn't need you back there, she said. I know, he replied. And you still came when I called. Yes. She studied his face, the tension he still carried, the discipline it took not to lead without invitation. That's new, she admitted. So is trusting you not to disappear. If I step back, he said quietly. That startled a laugh out of her. You hunted me. Yes, he agreed, and discovered you weren't something to chase. The moon climbed higher, bathing the canyon in silver. You let me go because you thought you were being fair, she said slowly. But you didn't ask what fairness looked like to me. No, he replied. I asked what was easiest to defend. And now? And now I'm asking what it costs me to do better. The honesty stripped something bare between them. She stared into the fire. I'm not going back. I know. And I won't be claimed again. I know. And if you stay. She hesitated, then finished. It won't be because fate pushes you. It will be because I choose you, he said, daily, even if you never choose me. The echo softened, not resolving, opening. She stood, turning toward the dark path beyond the canyon. We move at dawn. He rose as well. I'll follow. For now, she corrected. He inclined his head. for as long as you allow. As sleep crept in under the watchful moon, she understood something she hadn't when she ran. Being hunted by regret was terrifying, but being followed by someone who finally respected her autonomy, that was dangerous in a completely different way. By the third dawn, the land began to change, not abruptly, but with intention. The forest thinned, giving way to high grass and rolling stone ridges scored by old boundary markers. This was contested territory, not claimed, not abandoned, simply avoided by packs that preferred certainty over complexity. She felt it immediately. "This place doesn't belong to anyone," she murmured. "No," he agreed. "Which is why it matters." They moved carefully, senses tuned outward. The echo of their broken bond no longer felt like a wound here. It felt questioned, as if the land itself was curious what they would do without inherited rules. By midday, they encountered the first sign of others, not rogues. A small group, 4 wolves, mixed ranks, their posture wary but not hostile. Refugees. The woman at their center stepped forward cautiously, scent threaded with old grief and newer resolve. "We smelled you last night," she said. "Didn't know if we should hide or speak." She met the woman's eyes. "You can do either." The honesty disarmed them. "We left our pack 2 weeks ago," the woman continued. "Our alpha dissolved 3 bonds in one night, called it necessity." The echo stirred sharply in her chest. Not pain, recognition. "And you?" she asked. "I ran," the woman said. "They followed. We didn't." The alpha beside her remained silent, dominance leashed as promised. He did not step forward, did not speak for her. She realized this was the test. Not of him, of her. "You're not trespassing," she said to the group, "but this land doesn't promise protection, only choice." The woman nodded slowly. "That's all we want." They traveled together for the afternoon, sharing water, trading fragments of stories without pushing for more. Trust formed not from vows, but from shared caution. As evening fell, they made camp near a stone shelf overlooking the plains. Firelight flickered across unfamiliar faces, wolves who had been discarded, dissolved, deemed inconvenient. "This is how it starts," the alpha said quietly later, once the others slept. She glanced at him. "How what starts?" "Something they can't control," he replied. She stared out into the dark. "Good." The next morning brought envoys, not hunters, not warriors, observers. 2 alphas from neighboring territories approached openly, accompanied by a seer whose scent was sharp with calculation. "We felt the disturbance," one alpha said carefully. "A former bond, unresolved. A flight." The seer's gaze fixed on her. "And a choice that should not have been permitted." She stepped forward without hesitation. "You permitted rejection. This is just the aftermath." "You destabilized the lattice," the seer warned. She smiled faintly. "Then perhaps the lattice was brittle." The alpha beside her shifted, subtle, supportive, but restrained. "You think you can build something out here?" Another alpha scoffed. "Without fate? Without hierarchy?" "I think," she replied evenly, "that hierarchy without consent is just fear with better language." The seer bristled. "You speak like someone who wants power." She shook her head. "I speak like someone who doesn't want permission." The envoys withdrew, unsettled, not defeated, yet. That night, alone with the Alpha beneath a fractured moon, she finally spoke the thought that had been circling for days. "You didn't come to bring me back," she said. "But you didn't come ready to let me go either." "No," he admitted. She met his gaze. "If you stay, you don't get to reclaim what you lost. I know. You don't get to define what we become. I know. And you don't get to lead unless I ask." His answer came without pause. "Then I will wait." The echo between them shifted again, not tightening, rooting. In the morning, more wolves arrived, then more, not to kneel, to stand. And she understood then, this was no longer a story of pursuit. It was a story of what happened after running stopped. By the fourth day, the plains could no longer pretend they were empty. Smoke rose from distant fires, not war signals, settlement markers. Wolves gathered in loose clusters, some cautious, some defiant, all carrying the same raw scent of severed futures. Packs had begun to notice what was forming here, and curiosity was quickly hardening into alarm. She stood at the highest ridge at dawn, cloak snapping in the wind, watching the land answer her presence without claiming her as ruler. "They'll come in force next," she said. "Yes," the Alpha replied beside her. "Not to fight, to define." She huffed softly. "That's worse." Defining things was how power disguised itself as order. By midday, the council arrived. 3 Alphas, 2 Seers, a delegation heavy with ritual symbols meant to intimidate rather than protect. They stopped at the edge of the informal settlement, refusing to step closer until authority was acknowledged. She walked out to meet them alone. The Alpha tensed behind her. "Stay," she said quietly. He obeyed. "You were released," the eldest Seer said immediately. "Your flight disrupted sanctioned bonds." "No," she corrected calmly. "Your rejection did." Murmurs rippled through the delegation. "You're sheltering unclaimed wolves," an Alpha accused. "You're encouraging fracture." "I'm offering pause," she replied. "There's a difference." One of the Alphas stepped forward, dominance pressing outward. "You have no right to convene anyone." She met his gaze without flinching. "Neither did the council that erased my future without consent." Silence cut sharp. The Seer inhaled, nostrils flaring. "You're building something dangerous." "Yes," she said simply, "to systems that survive on silence." The Alpha behind her moved then, not forward, not aggressive, but present. His dominance did not overshadow hers. It supported it, a rare alignment that unsettled the delegation more than hostility ever could. "You followed her," the Seer snapped at him. "You hunted her," he nodded once, "and discovered she didn't need to be returned." Shock rippled through the envoys. "You would dismantle your own authority for her," an Alpha demanded. The answer came before she could stop it. "I already did," he said. The words landed like a fracture. The Seer's composure cracked. "This isn't how fate works." She smiled faintly. "That's the point." The council withdrew, not in defeat, but in uncertainty. They would regroup, rewrite narratives, attempt containment. It was already too late. That night, she finally confronted the truth she'd been circling. "This started because I ran," she said quietly, sitting beside him near the fire. "But it's becoming something else." Yes, he agreed, and you don't owe it to anyone. She stared into the flames. I don't want to lead. Then don't, he replied. But I won't disappear again either. Good. She turned to him, studying his face. Why are you still here? He didn't answer immediately. Because for the first time, he said carefully, following doesn't feel like weakness. The echo between them stirred, not demanding resolution, inviting one. In the distance, howls rose, not threats, questions. The moon rose full and unbroken on the seventh night, not as an omen, as a witness. She stood at the center of the gathering, not elevated, not crowned, just visible. Wolves ringed the clearing in loose formation, refugees, wanderers, defectors, and a few who had never belonged anywhere to begin with. No one knelt, no one waited for permission to breathe. This wasn't a pack, it was a convergence. They'll call this a rebellion, someone murmured from the edge. She nodded. They always do. They'll send warriors next. Yes. They'll try to make an example of you. She smiled faintly. They already tried to erase me. This is the sequel. Soft laughter rippled through the clearing, relief edged with defiance. She raised her voice, not to command, but to be heard. I didn't come here to build a new order, she said, and I won't replace one cage with another. The wind carried her words easily. I ran because staying meant disappearing, she continued. I was rejected, released, told that my future no longer served the balance. A murmur of recognition. But balance that depends on silence is just violence with better timing, she said, and I'm done accepting it. She scanned the faces, some hopeful, some afraid, all awake. If you stay, she said, you stay because you choose it. If you leave whole. No bonds forced, no obedience demanded. She paused. And if they come for us? The Alpha stepped forward then, standing beside her without overtaking the space. We will not answer fear with domination, he said evenly. We will answer it with refusal. The clearing held still. She turned to him, surprised. You don't speak for me, she said softly. He inclined his head. No, I stand with you. The distinction mattered. A howl rose from the perimeter, long, questioning, not hostile. Then another. Then many. Not a rallying cry, an acknowledgement. Later, as the gathering dissolved into quiet conversations and watchful rest, she stood alone at the forest's edge. The Alpha joined her, presence familiar now without being claimed. You could have taken control, she said. They would have followed. Yes, he replied, and they would have learned the wrong lesson. She exhaled slowly. I don't know what this becomes. He looked out over the land. Neither do I. The echo between them, once broken, once hunted, settled into something new. Not a bond reforged, not destiny reclaimed. A choice made daily. They'll keep telling this story wrong, she said. Yes, he agreed. But they'll tell it. She stepped forward into the moonlight, no longer running, no longer waiting to be claimed. She had fled her rejected fate. And when the Alpha who let her go came hunting, he found a woman who no longer belonged to destiny at all. She didn't escape fate to be reclaimed by regret. She ran far enough to choose herself, and when he followed, It was no longer to hunt, but to walk beside her,